Hello, I'm Bob the Bookerer and welcome to my channel, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the books that I've been reading this week. I hope you're having a really good week and things are going well. I am having quite an intense week and I'm slightly bearded partly as a result, so I look a little bit like I am in the film Castaway, but please bear with. Either that or I'm going for like a general lumberjack feel, who knows. Let's see what 2025 has to offer. But apart from that, I was also at the Cheltenham Literature Festival last weekend, and so that was really fun. I sort of had mentioned in the last video that I was going to be going there, but it was a really great experience. I had a really fun time. I was there mostly for work reasons, but I also managed to spend a bit of time talking to some author friends, as well as just sort of generally being sort of soaking up the bookish environment. And sort of at one point, I'm fairly sure I saw Ian McEwan exiting through a door in the green room, and I also walked past Miriam Margolyes and Richard Osman as well, which was really fun and very weird to see them in person. They feel like very much TV people in my head, so that was fun. But on top of that, it was really lovely. I got to go to a couple of panels. So I went to a panel for the New Adult Writing Prize, which is a prize that had started this year and was particularly looking at people who were in the books that are aimed at people aged 18 to 30, and basically talking about this idea of growing into your adulthood. And one of them, somebody I have met a few times and is a really wonderful person and great author, Seth Insua, was there because Seth was shortlisted for Human Animal. The winner was Nicola Dinan with Disappoint Me, which is a fantastic novel, and I had a chance to chat to her briefly as well, and she is every bit as quick and witty and fun as you would hope. She's very clever, and I adored her. Seeing Seth there as well was absolutely beautiful. He's such a lovely person. So that was first of all just a lovely moment anyway. And then on the second day, I ended up hanging out for a bit with the wonderful Anton, translator and author. So Toward Eternity being his book itself, and then he was also there talking about books that he has been part of translating, so including the recently released Capitalists Must Starve, which is a fantastic novel name, by Park Seolyeon, and which he was the translator for. And he also translated her other book, A Magical Girl Returns, retires even, which I'm really excited to read both of these. So at some point soon, I will be talking about these books. But it was fascinating in those discussions about the book to also really go into what it means to translate or not translate certain things, which is something that very much comes up in Toward Eternity as well. And so I found the discussion around how you translate and what you translate to be really interesting. But equally within that conversation, there were lots of discussions around power and the ways that it manifests. And I found it really fascinating. And I cannot wait to read Capitalists Must Starve, which sounds absolutely fantastic. Anyway, all of that aside, it was a fun weekend. Apparently, there are also about 14 other literary festivals happening the same weekend, which I hadn't realised. And so I need to get myself in order to go to some more of these next year. But let's get talking about the books that I have been reading this week. So first up, I read A Station on the Path to Somewhere Better by Benjamin Wood. And if that name sounds familiar, that's because he is the author of Sea Scraper, which was longlisted for this year's Booker. And I loved Sea Scraper so much that I wanted to go and read something else by him. And I was not disappointed in the slightest. I really enjoyed this. So A Station on the Path to Somewhere Better is, in some ways, treads similar ground. It's about a young man who is trying to work out the relationship that he has had with his father. And also at some point there is a folk music, like sort of open mic night, which is also in Sea Scraper. It's very rare that I've seen an author have two folk music open mic nights appear in books. Anyway, but this book is largely around a young boy called Daniel, who is trying to work out how everything has happened with his father. Because when he's young, he basically talks a lot about how his father is this really cool figure in his life because he is involved in creating the set for a TV show, like a sci-fi TV show that he and his father are obsessed with, and they watch it religiously together. Nobody else around them seems to really understand what this show is. You know, he's almost always saying to people, "Oh my gosh, have you seen God, what's it called? The Artifacts. Have you seen The Artifacts? It's incredible. You've got to watch it." And everyone around him either says, "That's a kid's show," or "I've never heard of it. What is that?" or "It sounds really stupid," and all those sorts of things. So this is the thing that he and his father bond over. But right from the beginning of the book, we are told that essentially more is there in their relationship. There's something more complicated. And how, in looking back over these old memories, he feels really conflicted because he is also very aware that his father is maybe not the good man that he'd presented himself as. And maybe all of this is a way of either hiding it or overemphasizing his good traits and not really focusing on the bad. And so there's just this really beautiful sort of seeking of relationship from this son, from Daniel, towards his father in this book that I just found so beautifully done. And yeah, although I think Sea Scraper does more with the kind of the literary quality of that, this book feels just, it has this real heart to it that is just so gorgeous. Next up, a book that's had a lot of hype, R.F. Kuang with Katabasis, or I've seen so many different pronunciations of this, and in an interview, R.F. Kuang said that basically pronounce it however you want. The audiobook I listened to called it Katabasis, which doesn't as naturally roll off my tongue, even if I acknowledge that that's maybe the intended pronunciation. Anyway, this I was really pleasantly surprised by. I'd just basically requested the audiobook and I thought I wouldn't basically be able to read it for a long time, and it suddenly came through. And yeah, it's a book that feels like it belongs. Well, actually, the thing I found really interesting is that R.F. Kuang has written about and given blurbs to or spoken about the book, the work, so works like Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and she talks about how Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which has been on my list for the absolute longest time to read, and I will read this year, were big inspirations on her, and that feels very apparent in this book. It feels like the kind of magical wonder of something like Piranesi. I adored this. I was not expecting to. It's not my typical type of read in some ways, but it just really kind of hit me for some reason. It's very funny. It's sort of a dark academia book. It's, the idea is there are two people that we mostly focus on, Alice and Peter, and they are both people who have these magical powers of various types, and there are also these other spells and incantations that are on them. Sometimes they feel like curses, sometimes they feel like gifts. For example, Alice, I think has a mark that basically means she can't forget anything. I think it's Alice. I might have got that wrong. Somebody has that, and it creates a situation in which it's just horrible for them because they remember all the bad things. They can never flush out any moments of shame or whatever. And anyway, all of this happens, and they are needing to go to hell to find somebody. And the book, I think, just has this really fun quality to it. And actually, a couple of times I had to keep checking because, as far as I'm aware, I think R.F. Kuang is from the US. And there are a few British references in this that really stopped me for a moment. Like, at one point, they talk about going to Wetherspoons, and it is done in such a natural way in this book that I was fully convinced for a second that the author was British. And a few other moments where that happens. It's just a really fun world. It obviously has stakes, it has all the dark stuff, but it is just really funny and silly at times, and they will be talking about magic, and it almost has a Pratchett-like sense of comedy with the absurdity of some of the moments happening. It's a slightly different feel to someone like Pratchett, but it has those little moments of very odd British humour that really appeal to me as a Brit. And I just found it really fun. I wanted to follow these characters to hell to do what they were doing. And also I just wanted to hear about what was happening. I just wanted to stay in this world. So yeah, I really greatly enjoyed this. I was not expecting to, but this is just a really fun read in amongst a lot of other stuff I've been reading. So yeah, particularly given the Booker project that I'm on, this was really fun and I really enjoyed this. And yeah, I would love to, I really want to go and read Babel by R.F. Kuang as well. And last but not least, Alison Bechdel with Spent. And this is a graphic novel. And I love her anyway. Alison Bechdel, I've read most, I think, if not all, of her sort of big graphic novels. And the thing that always strikes me about her is the sort of intelligence and the humour that go into these. So there is often something that she's prodding at, but she does it in a fun, subtle way, or sometimes not so subtle way, that allows it to breathe. It's not dogmatic. And so, for example, in this, Alison Bechdel is a character who is basically a sort of fictionalized version, or sort of a played up version of her real life, where she is wondering about what to do next. And in some ways, this book is meant to be a jokey response to capitalism, because in the story itself in this, Alison Bechdel is raising pygmy goats on a little farm with her partner or wife. I can't remember if they're married, but with her partner. And they go through all of, they start to worry about money a little bit. And Alison Bechdel is reflecting on the fact that she's been very lucky that, despite, she had many years of being, to some degree, a starving artist and not really making a great deal of money. Then she suddenly had this resurgence later in her career where she won prizes, where her work was taken more seriously, or became a lot more popular. And this all allowed her to do a lot more. And now she is in a position where a TV show, at least in this, is being made of what is basically meant to be Fun Home, her first memoir. Although in that it's called, I think, is it Death and Taxidermy? And so she is sort of meditating on that and about what that means when your real story is corrupted on screen. So Alison Bechdel, lifelong vegetarian. At one point, her character, who's meant to be her in Death and Taxidermy, eats a Big Mac, and it's this whole thing. And friends of hers are saying, hang on, wait, aren't you a vegetarian? And it becomes this whole thing of watching as the story of who you are is pushed, it sort of runs away from you. Meanwhile, this book is also a meditation on capitalism, because she is worried about the fact that this is being produced by what's essentially meant to be Amazon. It's called something like Megacorp, or a mega pub, I think it is, in this. And so she is really nervous that that feels like a betrayal of her values. But then the money from that deal is huge, and she could only get that kind of money from somewhere like an Amazon or whatever. And that allows her to live a more ethical life in other ways. So she has that contradiction. And all of this kind of comes together in these really interesting ways throughout the book. And I just found it really captivating as a sort of a knowing joke about publishing, art, capitalism, politics, everything, whilst also just being a really entertaining and visually very beautiful set of kind of drawings of a comic novel, a graphic novel. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this. Alison Bechdel is just always good fun. And this particularly feels like a very meta version of it, because Alison Bechdel as a person is a character who knows that people know her as a character through her memoirs, but she's also worried, for example, about her sister sharing her story and talking about her side of Funeral Home, or Fun Home rather. And so she has this whole debate in her head about what this means. If the story that is told about her is different, if the Amazon story is different, and all of these things, who is she in the midst of that if the story about her is not quite accurate? So that's what I've been reading this week, and I hope you are all doing really well. I hope you're having a fab week. I will hopefully get some Wednesday videos back up again soon. I've had a bit of a run of things that have been a bit hectic, so I've not quite had any Wednesday bits. I've got some things scheduled and lined up, hopefully, so we shall have that soon. But thank you all so much. Take care and have a wonderful week. Bye bye.